Hey, Jeffrey, good to see you as always. We've talked about annoying neighbors, noisy neighbors, bad neighbors, smelly neighbors, but we didn't talk about the worst possible neighbors anybody could ever have.
We have not. And given that October is Women's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I thought we would maybe delve into a little bit more heady topic with this, with the Radium Girls.
Difficult. See, if folks, you have neighbors that could give you kind of a rash, that can really be annoying, really make you angry. But your neighbors, correct me if I'm wrong here, folks, in the when you write back to us, but your neighbors don't give you cancer. That's the worst possible neighbor. Maybe someone throws around a trash can lid. It's really annoying. But if your neighbor's giving you cancer, that's not a good neighbor, Jeff.
That is not a good neighbor. That's a horrific neighbor. That makes the compost area too close to the property line seem infinitesimal when it comes to something like this.
Dirty deeds, triggered tirades, busybodies, and missing cats. They say tall fences make good neighbors, but bad neighbors make the Right Next Door podcast.
So tell us about these bad neighbors.
Well, so I've been intrigued with this story for a couple of years now because I think I first got wind of it via a series they did on NPR. And then there was a movie that came out, the Radium Girls movie in 2018.
Radium Girls.
Yeah. And I was kind of disappointed in it because, I mean, it when I heard about it, I was like, okay, this will be like just such a great one of those, suspenseful. And it was, I think it went to one of the film festivals and it was, on the lower budget side. So it wasn't a big studio production. So I was a little disappointed in the way they the overall picture came out. But I've been intrigued with this story ever since. And then last night, I was listening to yet another podcast. I think it was called like History Horror Stories or something like that. And I was scrolling through and I saw, Radium Girls. And I'm like, oh, let's see what they did. So anyway, that was kind of how this all came together. And given that Ottawa, Illinois is, in a suburb of Chicago, it's kind of crazy that this stuff went on right in our backyard.
The big outline of this is there are these heroic women who are working for the war effort in World War II, and what they're doing is they're painting radium on dials of watches so pilots can see in the dark what time it is. And these women are doing this, and they're painting the radium on with paintbrushes. And there was not the knowledge when radium was first discovered by Marie Curie all those years ago. People didn't know what radioactivity was. They didn't know how dangerous it was. Right up to World War II, these women are taking these little paintbrushes, they're putting them in their mouths to make the brush into a point, and then they're painting radium on the dials. And they're repeatedly doing this through the course of their working day. And it turns out, that radium is, it's radioactive, and they get these various rather terrible cancers, and it's a bad thing, and there's a group of them who die terribly.
And really horrific cancers. I mean, some of the stories.
You're putting radium into your mouth, and so cancer of all the mouth parts. That's not good.
Well, I mean, there was one woman that they focused on that, like her whole jaw disintegrated, like the bones in her jaw, like literally had turned to dust.
And Jeff, you need your jaw for a lot of things. Like we could not do this podcast as skillfully as we do if one of us did not have a fully working jaw. That's evident. I'm looking at you here on the Zoom, and I'm trying to picture you without a jaw. Not as attractive.
It would not go well. It certainly would not go well. And what I found even as disturbing is that I guess when radium was first out, they thought it was actually a health benefit.
Oh, yeah, you put radioactive stuff in everything. You put it in your cold cream, in your cigarettes, and your coffee, and your,
Yeah, I mean, so people were actually ingesting like tonics and stuff with radium, thinking that it was actually helping them.
Ladies, do you want that youthful glow? How would you like to glow in the dark? Now, Radium Cold Cream can be the answer to all your cosmetic cares.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like Kent Cigarettes putting asbestos in their filters. I mean, it's just like, what?
Cigarettes, I still push back against that thing that they're unhealthy. I have a 3-pack a day habit.
The jury is still out on. We're not 100% sure that even though they've removed the asbestos from the filter, they're more healthy than they used to be.
I'm too much in love with my own voice. I can't smoke cigarettes, Jeff.
So I mean, there's just some crazy stuff, as we all know, goes on in history. But what was even crazier is that the ladies would wear like their evening dresses to work to get the dust on them, because they would glow in the dark while they were, and they would paint their fingernails. And the thing that I thought was really over the top is that they would literally paint their teeth with the radium, so that they would, have like this glow when they were out, dancing on the town, so to speak.
It's almost too good to be true. You have something you paint on that glows. That can't be good.
Part of the reason I'm so fascinated with this story is I recall being a little boy at my grandmother's and grandfather's house, and they had one of those old wind-up alarm clocks. I don't know if they were called Big Bens, or I think.
Yep, Big Ben was a brand, yeah.
So, and I remember as a little kid, like looking at that thing glowing in the dark, I'm like, that is the coolest thing. This thing is like glowing. And so, I had radium next to my head, even as a little boy. I mean, you'd think that, there's probably no exposure once it's already on the dial, but I was fascinated by the glow in the dark thing, even. Well,
there are still things, I think there are things that glow in the dark that likely are not dangerous. We're coming up on Halloween in another month or so. There are glow in the dark skeletons and different things. Maybe we'll find out in 20 years that we were exposing ourselves to radioactivity even from those. But I think there are bioluminescent animals, for crying out loud.
And don't forget about your black light and Velvet Elvis poster. And you did look incredibly tan under a black light. If memory serves, you were better than George Hamilton under a black light. You look great.
Well, actually, back there, Jeff, we were tanning. We were sitting out in the sun. We were letting the sun get onto our skin. We were choosing to bake in the sun. And I've had one bout of skin cancer. No, thank you. When you're starting to cut stuff off your face, maybe the sun is not your friend.
I don't know a lot about like Superfund sites and stuff, so I go to the EPA just to see what the heck is going on in Ottawa, Illinois. And as it turns out, they had a total of 16 sites. So what they did is, let me back up a minute. So the Radium Dial Company, which operated from about 22 to the mid 30s in Ottawa.
Was it called the Radium Dial Company?
Yeah. And so
that's hello over here, radioactive stuff.
Radium Dial Company. So they employed about 1,000 young ladies, and they cranked out about 4,300 dials per day. So obviously it was a fairly laborious process, because that's only like 4.5 dials per person, which on an 8-hour shift doesn't sound a lot, but that tells you how much, brush licking and
factory radioactivity.
So obviously a very laborious process. But so when Radium Dial closed, guess what it turned into? Guess what they used the radioactive? Take a wild guess.
Is that maybe cosmetics or?
Nope, it became a meat packing plant. So all the radioactivity went into the meat, and then it became a farmer's co-op after that, which I'm assuming is like some sort of storage or farmer's market thing.
They should have been able to figure out, we go in for an x-ray now. Maybe if you ate like a hamburger that had a lot of irradiated meat, they could you could just see your stomach. Maybe even without the x-ray machine, if they just had these special glasses or something. Well, when we were kids, they had x-ray specs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, those goggles. Yeah, the x-ray vision.
So they sold them, but there's a little picture like you could look through a lady's dress or something like that with these x-ray specs. And so you're a horny little 13-year-old. I'm going to send away for these x-ray specs so I can,
Totally bamboozled by that. Matter of fact, I think I bought mine out of a copy of Boy's Life, which was like if you were you got through the school book program, and it was like x-ray vision. And it was like the biggest scam of all time.
Oh, they're totally a scam. Yeah,
I don't don't think you could even see out of the glasses. It was some ridiculous, like it gave you double vision or something.
Yeah, it basically, enforced double vision. All the things you get in the back of Boys Life magazine with those pulp, the comic books, I still have my sea monkeys from all those years ago, and they're about 3 feet tall by now.
Oh my God, the sea monkeys.
They're sentient creatures that are a part of my life to this day. We watch television together, I and my sea monkeys. Of course, they're in a tank. But the crazy things. So a meatpacking plant. And so it is. So it's on the list of Superfund sites, the radium dial company.
Yeah, and the reason why is because it gets even worse than that. So after the farmers co-op, they demoed the building, and then they used all the radioactive rubble as landfill all around the town.
Oh boy!
That's I think how they ended up with 16 Superfund sites, and I believe there's only one from the EPA website that I was on today. It looks like they've all been cleaned up except for one. So
by the way, I want to clarify something. Just making sure for our listeners, these aren't super fun sites like Disneyland or something like this. Superfund sites. These are sites the government has designated to do this extensive cleanup because there's a terrible, terrible health hazard. Although, if you like cleaning up health hazards, maybe for you that is super fun.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have a friend. One of my best friends is an environmental engineer. For him, this is super fun, man. He does this all day long. This is what his job is. He loves it.
Cleaning up prior messes of history.
Super fun. It is super fun.
Well, apparently, so I had to look this up because I didn't know what it meant. So there's an NPL list, November Papa Lima, for those of you that speak that lingo, which stands for a national priority list.
Okay. So there's Superfund sites that are especially bad, and they go to the top of the list?
Yeah. So well, I won't bore the listeners with all the details, but there's a red triangle, which is an active national priority list site. And then there's a red triangle with a black dot in it. That is a non-national priority list cleanup. So
look for the black dot. Okay.
Yeah. If you see the black dot and a red triangle, probably something was there, but not to worry. They've taken all the bad stuff away.
So this is ski. That's like a ski resort. You look for the black diamond runs, and you got to stay away from those. So you want a red triangle with a black dot. But you shouldn't be anywhere around there.
I don't think you want to be anywhere near a red triangle, period. Because even the black dot means that there was something there, and God only knows if they actually cleaned it up correctly.
Don't worry, darling. There's a black dot. We can spread the picnic blanket. Bring the kids over. I've got the potato salad. It's a red truck, but there's a black dot, sweetie. Right. So this is a lovely area. Yeah, it seems so. There's not a lot of people around for some reason. Well, this is a perfect place for a picnic. Wow, why are those ants glowing? That's strange.
Right.
That's a weird thing.
Well, and what I found incredibly weird is that the only active red triangle on the EPA's website actually has it's actually being used by humans. So it's still apparently contaminated. I mean, I would assume that the EPA updates this map. So I mean, if you just go to the EPA and put in Superfund sites, put in your town or whatever. But I will tell you, when I saw the national, all of North America, there is a scary number of red on that map. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, there's for various reasons, for various annoying political reasons, Superfund sites, they're kind of slow in cleaning them up. It's very expensive to do. And there are people that say, "Oh, you guys are too whiny back. Why are you worrying so much? Why are you spending all this money on cleaning up these sites? We're going to be okay." Or it'll be hundreds of years before our children are irradiated. Why do I need to clean that up now? I don't need to spend money on cleaning that up now.
Well, it's like asbestos. I mean, the same thing. I mean, the problem is, like the John Hancock building loaded with asbestos, but if it's encapsulated, it's okay. I'm like, asbestos is only bad if it becomes unencapsulated and then it goes.
I make sure all my asbestos is encapsulated. Yeah. I actually, I have when I buy asbestos capsules, I make sure that they have a double container around them.
A double container.
When I take my asbestos capsules, I make sure that they're only the healthiest, only the most organic asbestos, Jeff. You have to make sure it's recently mined before taking a capsule.
Well, one of the women that died in this radium thing, I mean, you can listen to the NPR story. She was Catholic, and they wanted a Catholic burial, and she was so radioactive that they had to put her in a lead-lined coffin.
Oh.
So I'm like, how, I just don't understand how something like this could, go that long, because obviously if they're burying people in lead-lined coffins, they knew the dangers of radioactive material even back then.
Well, then I'm wondering, you got to make sure that she's actually deceased, because that lead is poisonous as well, Jeff.
So lead,
if you're in contact with the lead for eternity, I mean, that's not good for your health.
Well, I remember as a young lad eating, what was likely lead paint chips, and I thought they were delicious.
Yeah. Or you have wiring, those kind of tasty wiring. You could chew on it. It's kind of very chewy and delightful.
Well, I mean, and it's funny we're even talking about this, because I played golf for the first time on a links course. I had never played a links course before. And for the
What's
record,
a links course?
Links course is super hilly, no trees.
So there's not like exotic feline, carnivorous felines on a links course.
It's just
it's
hilly.
Links, LINKS. It's not
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so it's just hilly, no trees, and it was enjoyable to play it and experience it, but not a fan of the links course, because you slightly leave the fairway and you think you're over, mound number one. You climb up to mound number one, no ball to be found. So you kind of lose your bearing on where the ball goes. But the reason I'm telling this is because it was on top of a landfill that was probably 100 years old. So so I'm playing this course going, and there was some standing water that was kind of slushy. I'm like, I'm wondering what's in that water. I'm like, should we actually be on top of a landfill that, who knows what was dumped in this thing for 100 years?
I mentioned my friend who's an environmental engineer, and you don't want to have lengthy conversations about the work of cleaning up the environment, because there's a lot of bad stuff out there, and it's not getting better fast. It just isn't. There's just too much to clean up.
Right. Yeah.
And they have to remove like acres and acres of soil down to so many feet to like clean these things up. And and then if you take that soil and move it over a little bit and create a links course, or create a lovely landfill for a picnic lunch. Yeah. How do you know it's really clean enough for your family?
And how do you know? Like I read that the spec was they had to go 10 feet deep to clear out, to make sure that the rubble. I'm like, well, who came up with 10 feet? How do we know it's not really 12 feet?
Yeah,
like where does 10 feet come from?
And how far down does that lead-lined casket have to go until, and then if you had a certain kind of instrument, could you see where her grave is? Would there be an eerie glow? And so those people that are the ghost hunters, how do they know that weird glow from the cemetery is not maybe an irradiated corpse?
Well, that's maybe why people think they're seeing ghosts. It's not a ghost. It's just the cadavers glowing. That
you got it.
I think we have just solved some of the paranormal mysteries that I listened to.
I think we have, and also given some great band names for those of you listening out there. Glowing Cadavers. If you're doing kind of a great kind of a horror rock stomp band, that's Glowing Cadavers.
Joey Skeleton and the Glowing Cadavers.
Glowing Cadavers. Yeah.
That's catchy.
I would see them.
But so once the Radium Dial company closed, same company is like they know what's going on, so they shut it down, and then they proceed to open a new company called Luminous Processes.
Oh, well, that completely hides the activity of Radium Dial Company.
They should have just gone with, the Cluckface Company or something.
Luminous Processes.
And that operated till 78. So, I mean, we've got nuclear power plants by 78. So people know what's going on by 78.
Yeah,
Guess what that later became?
I have no idea.
Another meat locker.
Oh.
So, like, who's taking
meat packer?
Yeah, who's taking these old radioactive factories and going, let's put meat in them?
Yeah, let's do food products. Let's do my friend, the environmental engineer, he's always looking for. Did they have a gas station on this location? Did they have like a oil storage facility? So yeah, there's a history. There's it would be kind of interesting, though, if you're barbecuing at night and there's a slow
little glow to your burger, that would have been kind of intriguing. Like,
I think it
honey,
would.
my burger's glowing. What's going on here? But it's funny you bring up the gas station, because that's another thing. Like the Lynx cars, they convert a lot of these gas stations into like Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks, and I'm like, I'm not ever buying a food item from what used to be a gas station. Because you've got, all the motor oil and stuff that they were working on the cars. Plus you got seepage from the tanks. They got water lines. I mean, it's just like, forget it. I'll find another, place to get my donuts.
Yeah, because donuts are pretty healthy by themselves,
right?
So you can eat as many of them as you like. But now, if they're irradiated,
if they're somehow contaminated with petroleum products, then all of a sudden they become not so healthy.
Oh, but so the oily goodness of that donut, Jeff. What is this mouthfeel for this wonderful baked product? There's something about the mouth. It has this unctuous, oily kind of lovely taste. Is it butter? Is it olive oil? What is in this donut that's making it so wonderful in my mouth?
If you're depressed and you want some comedy, go to YouTube and watch millennials do reviews of anything, wine, cigars. I mean, I was watching this one kid do a review on a cigar, and he like literally lights it, and then he takes a puff, and he's like, earthy tones. Vanilla, hint of chocolate. I'm like, okay, there's no vanilla or chocolate in a cigar, so I don't know where you're coming up with this. It was I just like burst out laughing. I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, and they're totally serious. Like they're allegedly like cigar aficionados or wine aficionados.
They're super fun, and there's also a thing called a super taster. Like you're supposed to have this ability, like you have more taste buds or something. So maybe you think you're a super taster. There are actually, scientists have found out there are people that have this amazing ability to taste more things than ordinary people. I would bet that most of those millennial YouTube testing people are not super tasters.
No.
They just have a list of qualities on a piece of paper in front of them, and they want to appear as if they know what they're talking about.
Right. Yeah. So, although
as opposed to us, we make it very clear we have no idea what we're talking about.
We have no idea what we're talking about, but we know what we like. So I don't need to describe it as earthy with hints of chocolate and vanilla. It's ridiculous.
Well, I saw you just the other night. You were smoking a cigar. Tell me what notes you tasted in that cigar, Jeff.
There were hints of moss. And a little tinge of cinnamon, which I found strange, but it smoked paprika.
Interesting.
Not regular paprika, more of a smoked paprika. Maybe it had something to do with the smoke.
Now there was a kind of a glow on the end of the cigar. Was that radium or was that just fire?
That was just fire.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And the cigar was fire, as the kids would say today. So, my word. Yeah. So, I mean, so anyway, I'd love to do kind of like a deeper dive into this story because
I don't want to go too deep, though. You don't want to get too close to the radium.
No, just for my own personal edification. It was
but Jeff, if we even just studying it, are we in any danger from just studying radium? I mean, is there any radioactivity to be derived from just a close connection with the story?
Well, whatever's coming off of my computer screen and going into my eyeballs, I guess I risk eye cancer from. Do you remember that as a kid when the color TVs first came out? Oh, yeah. They're like, don't sit too close to the TV. It's bad for your eyes.
Tell a kid not to sit too close to a television for Saturday morning cartoons.
Well,
good
they
luck
may have been right because I used to watch that thing like a foot from my face, and I'm blind as a bat now. So there may have been something to that. I don't know.
The takeaway, Jeff, for today is don't go on a picnic with your family on top of the Superfund site.
Yes, avoid red triangles at all costs.
That's right.
You have a neighbor who's driving you crazy. Tell us about it. RightNextDoorPodcast at gmail.com. The Right Next Door Podcast is an unscripted production of Eversharp Media, which takes a satirical look at local news coverage and social media. The material, views, and opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the talent, guests, or the production company. Celebrity voices impersonated, including this one.